We continue our 2025 WVU position preview series today by taking a look at what I consider to perhaps be the most loaded room in the entire roster for West Virginia, and that's the running backs. Let's talk about them. What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into the Country Roads Webcast as we get set to continue with our position preview series leading up to the start of the 2025 WVU football series, trying to learn a little bit about each position group. And today we're diving into one of my personal favorites and the position that I think is maybe the most jam-packed, loaded with talent on West Virginia's roster going into the 2025 season, and that's the running backs. And I'm really excited to talk about each of these individuals. But before we dive in and talk about them, I just want to hit you guys with a quick reminder, if you would, just take a second, move your thumb, move your mouse, whatever device you're on there, just hit that thumbs up button. Helps us a ton with that crazy YouTube algorithm. It'll help this video find more Mountaineer football fans like yourself. And if you're one of those that hasn't yet, definitely go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Stay up to date on the roster, transfer news, recruiting news, you name it, throughout the WVU football season. We will keep you up to date here on the CRW. And of course, if you're someone that can't get enough WVU football coverage, it's definitely an excellent time to consider becoming a channel member by hitting that join button down in the video description or on the YouTube channel homepage. And with that, you're not only going to help us keep this mic recording and keep that camera rolling, and we appreciate that support, but you're going to get a ton of bonus WVU football content, especially once we get into the season here, where you're going to get film reviews, snap counts, depth chart updates, injury reports, all kinds of stuff there that you're going to need to know about for the WVU football season if you're someone that's a diehard, and I know a lot of you guys are, so definitely we'd appreciate that support. But like I said, if you can't help us out that way, fast, easy, and free way, it's just by hitting that thumbs up button. So with my spiel out of the way, now let's get into it. Let's pull up the running back room as a whole, and then we're going to break down each one of these guys individually and tell you what you need to know. And at the end, of course, I'll give you my projected pecking order for the 2025 season. Let's roll into it. All right, so of course you're familiar with our CRW roster tracker, where we go through and give you WVU football roster updates all throughout the offseason, because, in today's day and age, you never know who's going to be on the team, and we try and rectify that for you so you know each step of the way. And of course, if you've seen that, you're familiar with this document, and this is the running back position group within that CRW roster tracker. As you can see, a really talented room for West Virginia. 7 guys on here, all of which are really good players if you're asking me. And like I said, no order that they're listed in here. We just go in descending order in terms of class, the redshirt senior down to the redshirt freshmen there at the bottom. And you can see, we've added some transfers. We have a couple of returners here that are really good as well. And I think I'm really excited about this running back room, not only because of the talent, but guess what else this running back room has that's perfect for a Rich Rod scheme and a Rich Rod offense? That's speed, baby. Check this out if you guys haven't seen this before. So this was over the summer, going through summer workouts, hitting the 40-yard dash, as part of their workouts, the 10-yard splits as well. And this was the running back room. Jaheim White shared this on social media if you guys hadn't seen it, but look at the speed in this running back room. So for some context for you guys that may not know exactly what you're looking at here, 40-yard dash on the far right there. And if you're in the 4.5 range, you're a really fast running back. And you can see West Virginia has 2 guys in the 4.5 range, Jaylen Knight and Canon Kizer, who we'll talk about momentarily. But then West Virginia has some sub 4.5 guys. Jaheim White's already running a 4.4, again, after coming off an injury, and he's really jacked up and really built up his frame as well. I think he's ready for an explosive year. More on that momentarily. And then Sincere Bowers is in the 4.3 range, guys. I mean, that's like Mario Alford style speed, right? That's up there with some of the faster players we've had at WVU. So to have him in the backfield is amazing. We've got a bunch of home run hitters in this backfield that can go the distance at any time, and a lot of guys to complement that as well, with a big back like Ty Edwards, who, despite his size, is running a 4.6. That's pretty impressive as well. So definitely there's speed in this running back room, but what do you need to know about these guys individually? Let's talk a little bit about them. All right, leading it off here with one of our redshirt seniors, Ty Edwards, who comes to WVU from the FCS school Northern Iowa, which is one of the more successful FCS programs typically. Also spent some time at UTSA and a couple junior colleges as well. But while he was at Northern Iowa last season, man, he really was impressive. And you can see the size there, right? 6'2", 228. Obviously, since he committed, people have wanted to draw comparisons to C.J. Donaldson, and I can see that with the frame, right? But the difference with Ty Edwards is he has that same size, but he has a little bit of a speed boost, to go with it, a little bit more of a quicker step than C.J. Donaldson had, if you will. So I think that's exciting if you're going to bring Ty Edwards in here to be your short yardage pack, your power back, to use him situationally. man, he's going to be really good at that. And a ton of experience to boot with that, right? You can't undervalue experience. This is a guy that ran for over 1,000 yards last year at the FCS level, had nearly 160 carries, averaged over 6 yards per carry, racked up 6 touchdowns. So I think that situationally, he's going to be used a lot. He's going to get some carries, especially, like I said, you need a short yardage back. You need someone to fill that role that C.J. Donaldson had for West Virginia previously. Ty Edwards can do that and more, and don't sleep on his speed just because, he's maybe considered the power back. This guy can break a long one too. So excited about Ty Edwards coming in from the FCS. Next up, the other redshirt senior West Virginia brought in onto this roster, and you guys have probably heard me rave about Jaylen Rooster Knight in the past. 5'10", 185-pounder, comes to West Virginia from SMU. Also spent time at Miami in college. And I think if you look at his career, a couple of things really sell you. Power conference experience, and he's played really well and has been explosive as a power conference player. I've described him as a home run hitter, and I think he still can be that. Now, he is coming off an injury. We'll have to see if he's back to full form. But how about that full form? What was it looking like? Well, how about this? Back at Miami as a freshman. So his freshman season at Miami, he ran for 561 yards and 8 touchdowns, and also caught 20 balls for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that shows you his versatility there with being able to hurt you in the run game, also being able to haul some things in the pass game. And also you see the explosiveness there. That's 14 yards per reception, 8 rushing touchdowns as a freshman, over 500 yards. Pretty impressive, especially considering he only played in 8 games that season. And then, of course, once he transferred to SMU, he really blew up there his first year before he had that injury that kind of hampered him last season. And that's why when you look at his numbers from last season, he only played in 2 games. He's coming off that, I believe it was a knee injury, so we're hoping he comes back to form. But first year at SMU, 745 yards rushing, over 5 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns there as well. And when you go watch him on tape, man, he has some explosive plays. He's got that quick twitch ability. He can make you miss, and if he gets out in the open field, he's hard to catch. So I personally think that Jaylen Knight and Jaheim White could be a hell of a 1-2 punch in this offense. Now, will that be who ends up being the top 2? I think we're all pretty solidified that Jaheim White's going to be the main guy. We're just waiting to see how are they going to split up the carries beyond him. Knighton's definitely a prime candidate to get some of those, but we have some other guys in the room that are good candidates for that as well. Let's talk about them, then I'll give you guys my projected pecking order after we go through the running back room here and let you guys know who I think that's going to be. And of course, next up, you guys know it. I always like to say number 1 in your hearts, number 1 in your programs, with him wearing the number 1 jersey now since last season. And you guys have heard me wax poetic about Jaheim White a ton. I mean, all the way going back to when he committed to us on signing day, when he was a true freshman, talking about him then, had high hopes. Of course, I put out a video saying he could be a freshman phenom, 3 months before his freshman season. And then, of course, that ended up happening later that year. And I've been, rocking with the guy ever since. You guys know I got the jerseys, I got the shirts, I've got him to sign them, all of that good stuff. And shout out to Jaheim White. He's always been really cool to me when I've talked to him on social media and stuff, including, reaching out and saying thank you for when I've done videos on him and stuff. So off the field, he's awesome, but on the field, he's even better, right? 5'7", 192 pounds. I don't know if they've updated that. I mean, he might be pushing 200 now. He's definitely looking like he's like 5% body fat or less. You guys have probably seen the pictures floating around of how jacked up Jaheim White's gotten this offseason. And if you add that to the speed and the agility that he has, pairing it into a Rich Rod offense, that's why I think Jaheim White, obviously going to be running back 1 here. He's going to get the bulk of the carries, in my opinion, although he's not going to get all the carries because there's going to be plenty to go around in a Rich Rod offense. But I think we haven't seen nothing from Jaheim White yet. I think we're about to see the perfect marriage of his playing style, his mentality, combined with the Rich Rod offense. It's going to be scary, guys. And that's why I think he's not only going to be the best running back in the Big 12 Conference this year, but my bold prediction, my bold take, my hot take, whatever you want to call it, is that he could end up as a Doak Walker finalist, Doak Walker Award finalist at season's end. That's how much hope I have for Jaheim White in a Rich Rod system, and rightfully so, right? You look over his first 2 years, I mean, nearly identical numbers, 842 yards his freshman year, 845 yards his sophomore year. Now, his yards per carry did go down a little bit, but he also saw a little bit more of a workload there. 11 rushing touchdowns combined over his first 2 seasons, and has done some decent job there in the receiving game. I think the running backs will catch some more passes in the Rich Rod offense, but he had 125 yards receiving his first year, 122 yards receiving last year, and has 3 total touchdowns in the receiving game. So you look already across Jaheim White's first 2 years, he's responsible for 14 total touchdowns combined, rushing and receiving, a ton of all-purpose yards, and that's only going to increase in a Rich Rod system. He's going to get a big workload. He's really, bulked himself up to be able to handle that, to be able to handle a lot more of the workload. And I think he's going to have a special, special season this year. Can't wait to see what Jaylen White does in 2025. Which then brings us to another transfer coming up from, the JUCO ranks. And man, he's kind of been the talk of the town since those 40 times came out, right? I mean, he was kind of the talk of the town before that because his highlight tape was so impressive and he looked super fast. But now, when you see those 40 times come out and you see he's running a 4.3 already, that really just has you licking your chops about what Sincere Bowers could be. Similar, frame to Jaylen White, got a little bit more size on him, 5'10", 191. He's only a sophomore as well, so this is someone that could be a future superstar for years to come at WVU. Coming in as a sophomore, that tells you something because most guys go JUCO, you play 2 years. Very rarely do you see a guy play 1 year of JUCO and then come out. Sincere Bowers definitely was more than capable of doing that, and that's why he does end up at WVU. I think that it's kind of lucky for West Virginia that they were able to get him after that first season, because if he would have had to stay a second season in junior college and more people would have been able to find him, West Virginia would have probably had to, battle some really blue blood style programs to try and get him in a future recruiting cycle. So glad that we were able to land him here with this one. And Sincere Bowers, guys, is another running back that, like I said, home run hitting ability. You've got that with several guys in this room. And I think in a Rich Rod offense, he could be really fun. I think what we have to wait and see with him is how quick can he get acclimated to the workout regimen, how quick can he get up to, the conditioning that he needs to be able to be utilized consistently in a Rich Rod scheme, because the talent is there, the natural ability is there. You can't coach speed, and this guy has it more so than probably anyone else in the running back room, and maybe more so than anyone else on the entire team. Last year at Iowa Central Community College, 155 carries, over 1,000 yards, averaging nearly 7 yards per carry, and scored 12 touchdowns. But he's another guy that's multifaceted. Caught 24 balls for 363 yards and another 2 touchdowns. So you look at that, that's over 1,300 yards, combined from rushing and receiving. Guy that can do it in multiple ways is another great fit for the Rich Rod offense. And I can't wait to see the way we utilize his speed, even if it's situationally this year. Maybe we put him in the slot some. Maybe we let him be our return man. He could be explosive there. But I definitely think Sincere Bowers has to get on the field and get the ball in his hands at some point and let us see what he can do with that explosive speed. And really excited about picking him up. Next up, we have Canon Kizer, who, if it wasn't for Sincere Bowers coming in just, a couple weeks or so after he did, I was blown away by his, speed, his combination of speed and strength, especially the way he runs at his size, 5'9", 189, but he really runs strong for that size, for that frame. And, don't sleep on his speed either. Like we said, he was there in the 4.5 range as well. And last year, I think what's really intriguing about Canon Kizer is, number one, he began his career in the power conference level at Washington State. But number two, at Ferris State last year, which was a team that was very good at the Division II level. You look at their team, they have a lot of guys moving up, but, rightfully so, because he's a winner. They went on to win the D2 national championship. He had 97 yards rushing in that national championship game, which they dominated and won. And overall, he had just such an impressive season. 1,128 yards and averaged nearly 9 yards per carry. That was number one in the nation there at the D2 level. 11 touchdowns there as well. So, super impressive. And yet again, what did he do in catching the football? 21 catches, 301 yards, another 3 touchdowns. So you look at these guys West Virginia's brought in, and not only are they explosive runners with speed, but they can catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit, and they're going to be called to do so. Screens, swing passes, check downs, all of those elements of the Rich Rod offense, where we're going to get the running back involved, because what we want to do in the Rich Rod scheme is we wanted to get the ball to our playmakers in space, get the ball to our speedsters in space, and let them go make plays. And I think Canon Kizer is a guy that you're going to see probably involved in the offense. I don't know to what extent right away, but I definitely think he has the experience. He's coming in as a redshirt junior, and like I said, he's a winner. He just came off a national championship at the D2 level. He's looking to move up and do it here at the power conference level. I think he has the skill and ability to be able to do so. Just another talented piece in this absolutely loaded West Virginia running back room. 2 more guys to talk about. All right, next up, former walk-on, just won the Tommy Nikolic Award, and he's really just been coming on throughout his career. You've seen him, gain size. He got a few carries in the spring showcase and looked good there. He is a sophomore, so has more time to develop throughout his career, and that, of course, is Klay Ash from Leesburg, Virginia. We've heard 2 different coaching staffs really like him now. So while, he's someone that you probably aren't mentioning right at the top when you're reeling off names in this running back room, you're talking Jaheim, you're talking Knight and Edwards, a lot of those guys that we just went over. Klay Ash is just kind of one of those guys that steady Eddie, works hard, flies under the radar, and, is going to get his eventually. I would not be surprised at all if he gets his. And if nothing else, man, he's a guy that will battle, give you great scout team looks, and is a really good person and player, teammate, all of that to have in this running back room. And we'll see what the future holds for Klay Ash because he definitely has some potential. Don't sleep on him. I like Klay Ash, and I think he has that hard edge mentality, right? That's important here under Rich Rod. So one more running back to talk about here. And that is the only freshman on the roster, Dior Hubard, redshirted last season. He came in with, fellow freshman Trayvon Dunbar, who decided to transfer away. Dior Hubard stuck around, and rightfully so. 5'10", 191-pound redshirt freshman out of Ohio originally. And, if we're making this position preview series back in the spring, I'd probably be raving a lot more about Dior Hubard because by all accounts during spring practice, he really stood out, was making a lot of plays, especially, Jaheim White wasn't able to play a ton. They didn't give him a ton of work in the spring. They knew what they had with him. Plus he was coming back off of that knee injury. So Dior Hubard got a lot of looks and he really impressed throughout the spring. Now I think he's still young, so he has a really high ceiling, a lot of chances to develop. You just have to wonder, is what he did in the spring enough to allow him to get carries over some of these guys that West Virginia's brought in that are more experienced? I don't know if that'll be the case, but the talent is there. The potential is definitely there for Dior Hubard. We'll just have to see how long it takes him to really get involved and be a key piece in this running game, in this Rich Rod offense. But there's going to be plenty of carries to go around. How do I think those will be shared around? Let's talk projected pecking order here to wrap up our running back position preview. All right, so I think this one's very interesting, and I figured that this one would probably be a little bit lengthy because I knew I was going to rave about these running backs. I think, like I said, it's probably the most talented running back room most talented position room on West Virginia's roster, and most talented running back room they've had in quite a while as well. I guess I could go ahead and add that into the mix also. But when you look at it, bar none, the easy thing to come away with here when we're talking projected pecking order is Jaheim White, running back 1. He's going to get the most carries. But we know that there's plenty of carries to go around in a Rich Rod offense. If I was a betting man, I would say Jaylen Knight is kind of going to be the two punch there to Jaheim White if he's recovered from that injury like I think that he probably has and hope that he probably has. And then I think you factor in Ty Edwards, short yardage situations. You need a power back. I think he's going to get his fair share of snaps. He has a ton of experience. And then I think you mix in Canon Kizer and Sincere Bowers, maybe situationally, maybe even line, one of those guys up in the slot, but I think they're going to get their carries as well. So I think you look right there, that's 4 running backs already. There's not a ton of carries to split around, especially you think Jaheim White's going to get a bulk. So does that leave Dior Hubard and Klay Ash on the outside looking in? I think is what we have to wonder about, now. I hope not, because I think both those guys are talented, like I said, but they are the youngest in the room. So maybe they're going to wait and let them develop a little bit, and we'll see what happens. But if I was a bet man, that's kind of how I would see it personally. I think that Jaheim White's running back number 1. I think if Knighton's healthy, he's probably going to get the second most carries. But if he doesn't recover, then if he hasn't recovered fully, then you're looking at, Kizer or Bowers, one of those two guys to step up, and they very well could. And it could be a situation where, one of these guys, maybe it's a Kizer or a Bowers that you think's not going to be the guy. All of a sudden we get deep into the season, they start earning more and more carries, and they're super explosive, and they start making plays and get more involved in the offense. I think Kizer and Bowers both have that capability, and that's kind of what I'm predicting here. I think starting off, we'll go with the experience. Obviously, Jaheim White, and then you have your 2 redshirt seniors, Ty Edwards and Knighton. You're going to work those guys in. You'll probably see a lot of running backs play against Robert Morris. But I think as the season develops, as they learn a little bit more about some of these younger guys in the room, I would not be surprised to see Kizer get more carries, to see Bowers get more carries as the year progresses. But that's just kind of the way that I see it. My main thing here is Jaheim White's about to have a special year in the Rich Rod offense. Bookmark it right here. And if I'm wrong, later in the season, come back, tell me, I'll eat crow. But I think he's going to be the best running back in the conference and has Doak Walker Award finalist potential. But that's just the way I see this room. Would love to hear about how you feel about the West Virginia running back room heading into the 2025 season. As we continue our position preview series, leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on this position group. Appreciate those interactions as we continue to try and grow the CRW community throughout Mountaineer Nation. Until next time, let's go Mountaineers.